tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. 50 seconds! When that clock hits 0, you send this truck. I don't care if Lennon himself comes out of his tomb with a priority package.
Castaway is a character journey of a man who was tied to time in our modern world in a very exaggerated way.
I absolutely positively have to get to Memphis tonight. Can't help you. Try UPS. Hey, is all this turbulence from Santa and those 8 tiny reindeer?
Better buckle up, Chuck. It's gonna get bumpy.
This is a story of the best thing that ever happened to this guy was, you know, his plane blowing up and him being stuck on an island for a long time.
I never should have gotten on that plane.
What his spiritual journey is what the movie's really about.
Tom Hanks was interested in doing some sort of movie about a modern man who got stranded on a desert island. Very quickly it became clear that, well, that sounds great, but what happens to him on the island? And so I found these guys that were primitive technology experts.
Bill Broyles called me up one day in Tucson and asked me if I would take him on a trip someplace and show him about the desert and what it would be like if a man crashed in a plane.
I worked on the consultant team with Bill Broyles when we went to Mexico to work on some skills for the script.
I was hired to put together a team to take Bill to Mexico to do an initial training program with him.
They took me down to the Sea of Cortez, and they stuck me on the beach. I had to make a shelter, and then I had to figure out how to, very quickly you realize, oh my God, I've got to survive. Where do I get water? How do I do anything?
Shelter's first. And even in a rough environment where there's not much water, getting out of the sun or out of the wind, out of the elements would be one of your first concerns.
He was able to make the discovery of a broken, sharp edge, which gave him the edge that he wouldn't have otherwise. The ability to cut and scrape and gouge and dig.
I had to learn to make a knife out of rocks, out of stone, and then sharpen a stick, and then what do I eat? So I started spearing stingrays. Then I'd cut them up with my rock knife and eat them raw. And I very quickly thought, well, I need fire. I'm not going to eat these things raw anymore. Trying to make fire, it was a total comedy. I spent literally a day and a half trying to make fire. And they just would laugh. I had nothing to drink, and I tried to open a coconut. And it's very much like in the movie. I could not open a coconut for anything. And I had no one to talk to. And I got up this third morning in this volleyball and washed up on the beach. And I went down and looked at it, and I thought, Wilson. And I started playing with this volleyball and talking to it. I guess that's so clearly something part of being human, that you want to relate to something. And I found myself talking to this volleyball.
You wouldn't have a match by any chance, would you?
Wilson was there. It was a tangible object. I think it was very important. I think it was something that did maintain his level of sanity through the time that he was on that island. So
some of these experiences became kind of the rudimentary basis for what would happen to Tom Hanks' character.
It's almost like Chuck has gone through this time machine to this world where you don't need pagers, and you don't need the internet, and you don't even need FedEx, but you do need fire and shelter and water and food, and you also need somebody else to share the experience with.
We're here in Moscow, shooting in Red Square. Sure beats Culver City. Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out who the screenwriter was who wrote, exterior, Red Square, winter. The whole crew wants to get their hands on it. Tell them we'll give them $25 American and a carton of Marlboros to take the clamp off right now. Otherwise, we'll see them in court. What? Cut. Good. Print. Good. Very nice. Okay. Beautiful.
Max, we're over here now, huh?
I was asking around if I was like, if I'm any kind of celebrity here, and by videotape, yes, but even then, very, very few of them, just because the whole Russian language barrier thing doesn't mean an awful lot of the American media culture has been able to translate.
While other directors work on this studio, Robert Zemeckis doesn't want to lose his time and started his project, Castaway. Tom has to lose a lot of weight.
There's a story around the world.
That's it.
But the funny thing about it doesn't say you're in Moscow.
It doesn't say you're in Moscow.
Isn't that funny?
It's just funny.
There's some reporter sitting somewhere who has no idea.
No idea that
He's
you're
probably
here.
like right down the street here. He's writing that, getting it off the internet like half asleep. No, look, it's the Bob Zemeckis feed.
Could have it.
There we go. How do Russians read papers with big gloves?
What's weird about working in Russia is that you can't make out anything. The signs, the words, nothing. If you're in Italy or France or something, you can kind of figure out some of the words, but in Russia, you need an interpreter for everything.
He's going to make a little adjustment.
Вам надо сделать не одним, а двумя.
I need an interpreter. Tell him we're going to go back to the Chinese restaurant now. And action Tom. Nikolai, tick-tock!
That's the great adventure of making movies, is you get to go off and do. I've never been to Russia. I've never been to Red Square. And the first time I went there was because the hotel I was staying at was right across the bridge. I had a view of it from my. There's where we're going to shoot tomorrow. I mean, this is the thing also too about making movies with Bob. Bob isn't going to blanch for a moment at the idea of making a movie. I mean, like I said, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get into Red Square in order to shoot the scene? Well, we'll take the trucks to Red Square. We'll set them up right there. I always forget that Bob is able to not be intimidated by that.
Do we like the way these trucks look? Well, they both got to be forward because the sword's going backwards. Right. Yeah, we shut down Red Square, meaning only people that were walking in here were our people. I have something to tell you about Red Square. I was here scouting Red Square. I said we're going to be able to shut down Red Square and shoot here, and they said yes, as long as that flag isn't red. And I said okay, very cool. The plane crash, we wanted to look absolutely real, which would make it more terrifying. So we did it at night, and we lit it only by the fire of the burning fuel and the lightning, and there was no like movie lighting or anything like that.
What can they do better? Flight.
Nothing. We're done. We got it. We got it.
Check the gate?
Check the gate. All right, guys, we're gonna check the gate.
It's very physical. I mean, you're being yanked around, and there's a lot of air blowing on you, and there's water that you got to deal with. It's kind of like going to a big jungle gym every day and say, what do I get to do today?
And water. And when?
If all of acting is taking these small snippets of real time and then cutting them up and then putting them all together, acting in a scene like that, you're working in the smallest snippets. You really are. It's like 7 seconds here and 3 seconds here and 5 seconds there.
And cut.
The worst thing that happened to Chuck was his plane. He survived a plane crash. If it had just been that, if he had been rescued 2 days later, well, then I think he'd be haunted by that plane crash for the rest of his life. But the fact is, Chuck survived a plane crash, and then he survived the despair of total, solitude and isolation for another 4 years.
We knew that the story took place in the Pacific because the Pacific was the largest body of nowhere you can be on Earth. We found the right island, and it turned out to be part of the Fijian Islands. It was still in the middle of nowhere as far as movie life, so yeah, we all kind of experienced what Chuck went through.
It was an extraordinary place. I mean, and that island becomes a really major character in the movie. It's like, in a way, after Tom, it was the next important piece of casting.
It was actually a sacred island, so there was nothing, not one single thing man-made on the island ever. I had to have like a little kava ceremony with the chiefs of the island. Our location manager, Mary, she had to do most of wining and dining of the local chieftains.
I had to go have a formal sabu-sabu in a Sulu and take kava, which is their ceremonial gift, and meet with them and offer prayers and request permission to look at the island and then explain to them the story of the movie and basically obtain the permission of all the members of the family, which is about 80-some people. When Bob came back and he chose the island, we had invited the chief, the head man of the family, and his 2 other brothers and their spokesmen and their wives to come and have lunch with us and watch us film for the day.
When we're done with this shot here, we're going to be coming up here where it's a little more shady. You can see a little better. So everyone enjoying themselves? Did you have lunch? Yeah. Great. All right, well, thank you very much. Right. Take care.
When the local chiefs and the tribes allowed us to shoot there, it was perfect. It worked for us great. Our biggest problem, of course, was having no infrastructure for the crew. It was about an hour-and-a-half boat ride from the nearest hotel or civilization to get to this island. Once you have cameras and movie equipment around sand, sun, and water, salt water especially, things move really slow. Even though we did have one incredibly cooperative actor.
This is a movie in which every scene, every day, we've tested by way of a cause and effect sort of like theory. We were always saying, well, why is Chuck doing this today? He would already, and a lot of times we have negated what the plan was because he would have already figured out that thing we were going to shoot.
A year from now, we come back, and obviously very little changes on the island because it hasn't changed in billions of years. But Chuck has changed quite a bit when we come back next year, and you know, we'll continue his adventure. It's been 14 months since we shot part 1, and we're back at the same island, and we're shooting part 2, and this is where our main character Chuck has been on the island for over 4 years now. At this point in the movie, Chuck's mental state is acute depression.
Tom's, remarkable weight loss saga was so crucial to the movie. It's not a gimmick. It's essential to the whole heart of the story, because if you don't come back 4 years later and see that this is a totally different man, the movie doesn't work.
Well, artificially on the other side, I did no exercise and ate whatever I want to, because I essentially wanted to look like your average 40-year-old guy and what his life is like. 4 years later, on a diet of pretty much all the fish he can spear and all the coconut he can eat, and maybe a few other things that he can find here, that's what he's been doing. Also living a very physical life. So, he dropped about somewhere between 40 and 50 pounds, but it was good to lose it. And a lot of that was artificial weight anyway. So it was, the year that we spent in between now and back then, I mean, for me, it was mostly just, just get in shape.
Action!
From a production standpoint, we wrote the book on what not to do the first time we were here. And the few things we've learned how to do right, well, we do those better now. And all those things that we did wrong the first time, well, now we do them right. So we have, more boats, more everything. More everything is pretty much what it comes down to.
Our first trip to Fiji was a year ago. It is complicated because you think that you can prep the whole movie and then you'll just stop and you'll do whatever you do in between. And then 2 or 3 weeks and everything can be ready for the second half. And it really isn't. You're just mounting up a whole other movie again. So people have had to have a lot more prep than we anticipated.
Cut! Perfect, Tom.
Yeah, they don't make movies like this very often, and now we know why. This is really hard.
To me, the movie's sort of an illustration of the idea that surviving is easy, but living is difficult.
That round concrete thing, it's not a former fountain, it's a former place of execution. You don't have a lot of those in America. You gotta come to the old world for places of execution. All right, I got it now.
Here we go.
The EPK sees that, sees my goof up. Are they here when I'm doing the great stuff? No. They've run out of film, the EPK people have. Video.
We're shooting over Tom to Wilson. How could he come in from that side?
This is great. This is a volleyball.
Okay, I know.
I know. Look here.
We got ocean and tide and sun and wind. We're having trouble with the volleyball.
I think Bob's really impressed with me.
Boy, I hope Bob's happy with my work.